Improved decision-making drives superior outcomes. Well, joining us today to speak about that, Amber Sally, Vice President of Industry Solutions at Gaines. Amber, it's great to see you once again.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hello, Russell.
Amber, earlier we were talking about VUCA. We were talking about growing complexity there. So if you would define the terminology for the viewer, and let's just talk about that. What's going on in terms of complexity? What do you say?
So if we start with complexity, we can think of it as the opposite of predictable. A lot of supply chains operated for decades with this idea that there's a lot of predictability in their customer demand and in their supplier base. But for many companies, COVID-19 showed that there might be more complexity to their environments than they would have thought. Now, if we think about VUCA, VUCA is an acronym that was developed by the military, and it stands for Volatility, Uncertainty, Complexity, Ambiguity. In supply chains, we can think of the volatility as variability. Variability in your customer needs, variability in your supply base, and that's increasing. Customers want more, the supply base is more unpredictable. Uncertainty, we can think of in the supply chain world as the uncertainty of when a disruption is going to occur. What are those unknown unknowns that are going to affect your supply chain, and how do you best mitigate around those? Complexity, think of as the growing complexity in our networks, more suppliers, more locations where material is held. And as we try to be more responsive to customers, we end up creating more complexity in our networks. And ambiguity in supply chain is having different views of what's really happening in your supply chain environment, making it harder for groups to make high quality decisions.
Any number of factors then are increasing complexity. And I guess the follow-on question would be, okay, so what? How does that impact? What's the impact of that sort of thing when it comes to making the right decisions? So walk us through that process, if you would.
So let's think about decision making. Everyone has to make a decision, and supply chains are no different. The challenge that we've always had with decision making is for many supply chains, it's hard to understand the cause and effect. So you don't always know the reason behind why you have to make a decision. And then you don't always have a sense of how your decision is going to affect other parts of your supply chain, or even what those second order effects of your decisions are. By adding more complexity, it adds a lot more noise to the decision making it even harder, not just to make a decision, but to make a high quality decision. And decisions, they're always going to be made. They're going to be made with the data that you have. But the question is the data good data? Is it the right data that you need? So you're going to make a decision. It might be okay quality because you're getting some kind of result. But what supply chains need to do is, again, understand how a decision that they're making is going to affect their value chain, their customers, how if the sustainability goals, how their decision is going to affect the environment.
Well, surely supply chain technologies that are in place are ideally equipped to deal with all of these issues that we just talked about, or are they?
Ideally, yes, but let's think about how companies manage their supply chains. Let's focus on supply chain planning and supply chain design, right? Companies will have these initiatives to create these best-in-class processes, but most of these textbook best-in-class processes were developed 30, 40 years ago when there was not as much complexity. And back when technology systems had a limit to what they could actually do. So now here we are in 2024, cloud computing, data science, operations research has evolved. But the technologies that are being built and designed are to support those 30, 40-year-old ways of working that, again, aren't considering complexity. They aren't considering the management of uncertainty. So even though technology has evolved, the way that it's applied is still being applied to a more textbook case example from 30 years ago for supply chains.
Well, follow-on question then is, what do we do? How do we make that work?
Well, the way that we make it work is we have to start to think differently about supply chain as a whole. A lot of supply chains are managed in a deterministic way. So you have one number that represents your demand, your inventory, your lead time, your yields. And when there was less complexity, and when things were more predictable, that one number was okay. So a lot of technology systems were purpose-built to take in that one number. But with the evolution of technology and probabilistic techniques, now companies can start to think more in a probabilistic way and start to use technology to help identify ranges of outcomes and then assign a probability to each future occurring, and then bring all that together to inform your decision making.
Great drill down into that issue, Amber. Thank you for that. You know, it occurs to me that perhaps some viewers out there may not be entirely familiar with Gaines. So let's focus for just a moment on the company, talk about what it's all about, how it might enhance the operations of any potential clients. So talk to us about Gaines for a second.
We are a supply chain planning and design software vendor. We've been around for over 40 years and we love solving complex problems, especially problems around inventory, replenishment, and design. We have a product that's the Gaines Halo 360 decision engineering and orchestration platform, which is purpose-built to support environments that are very complex, have a lot of uncertainty in them, to help you make better decisions in your supply chain.
Well, uncertainty, the only certainty out there in the supply chain world these days. Amber, thank you so much for finding the time to speak with us. It's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
Amber Sally Gaines speaking with us today about improved decision making and how that's going to drive superior outcomes in your company. Thanks for watching.